Good evening, and thank you for watching. Having just finished a sermon series on the life of Jesus from Mark, as we get into Luke, I like to pull out those little nuggets that are kind of exclusive to Luke's gospel, and one of those is in our reading for today, the story of Zacchaeus. And what do we know about Zacchaeus? Well, the main thing we remember about him, because we sang about it as children, is that he is short. He's a wee little man. And from that same song, we learn that Jesus spent the day at the home of Zacchaeus. And we like that because it means Jesus pays attention to short people. And we really like that if we too are short, right? Often we're made fun of if we're short. Not once does Jesus say anything about the fact that Zacchaeus is staturally challenged. But there's something else at play here. The Greek word for short can also mean least. And so the phrase translated short in stature could be translated least in stature. He may be the shortest man in all of Jericho, the least. And here's what is for sure. The people of Jericho and of the entire region don't think much of Zacchaeus at all, and it doesn't have anything to do with his height. In their eyes, Zacchaeus is the least, period. The Cradle Roll song never mentions the fact that Zacchaeus is not just a tax collector, he is the chief tax collector. He oversees a group of tax collectors. And in Jesus' day, there is nobody less than a tax collector. And as the chief tax collector, well, Zacchaeus is the least. He's not just hated by these people, he is loathed. Tax collectors, as we've often talked, are notorious for demanding a whole lot more money in taxes than they really should take. And that's because that's how they make their living. They demand a lot so they can take their cut, and then they're going to give what's left to the chief tax collector, who's also going to take his cut, and it's going to be a heftier cut. And then whatever is left over is turned over to the empire, Rome, the oppressor. They are in control of all of Israel, and for that matter, they're in control of the Mediterranean world that those people knew. Zacchaeus is a very wealthy man, but he's heard about Jesus, and he's heard enough about this Galilean rabbi that he wants to see him. And so as he gets word that Jesus is going to be passing through the city of Jericho, he's on his way to Jerusalem where he will suffer and die, Zacchaeus wants to get a glimpse of this miracle-working man. Kind of makes me think of the time that Obama or Trump landed Air Force One out at the Austin airport and then would take that lengthy motorcade to downtown Austin. Traffic would be stopped for miles on 71 and then on 35, and people would be getting out of their cars, some of them waving flags, some of them holding signs. Huge crowds gathering to hopefully get a glimpse of this famous leader. And that's what's happening here. A big crowd comes together because Jesus is passing through. Everybody wants to see him. But Zacchaeus is short in stature, and he is least among the people. There's nobody in that crowd that's going to surrender their place in the front row to let this lowly, traitorous thief get a view. And so what does Zacchaeus do? Well, you remember what he does because you've sung the song. Let's read the story then. Luke chapter 9, the first 10 verses. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. And he was seeking to see who Jesus was. But on account of the crowds, he could not because he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to Zacchaeus, "Hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all grumbled, "He has gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner." And Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, "Behold, Lord, The half of my goods I give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Three things should immediately catch our attention as themes in this story, and I kind of highlighted them in the text that we just read. Sight, wealth, and stature. First of all, let's talk about sight. Zacchaeus wants to see Jesus. He wants to see Jesus so badly that he's willing to climb up into a tree to get a better view. Now, I don't know a lot of rich people, but the ones I do know wouldn't climb a tree for anybody because they're too prideful. I'm not going to scuff up my Prada pumps climbing in some tree. I'm not going to risk anything to catch sight of some poor preacher who doesn't even own a home. And yet the reality of the story is the one doing the seeking is who? It's Jesus. In verse 5, it is Jesus who looks up and sees Zacchaeus. Why? Well, Jesus tells us in the final verse of the passage, seeing the least is why he has come. The Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which is lost, that which is least. Secondly, let's talk about wealth. Zacchaeus is wealthy. He is filthy rich. He has become rich on the backs of the least. He takes money from common people, excess money, taxes, and he lines his own pocket with it because that's what tax collectors do. And yet by the end of the story, he has been so touched by the presence of Jesus, so touched that Jesus would even give him the time of day, so grateful to be in his presence that he does what? He makes a startling commitment to Jesus that half of his wealth, half of what he already has, he's going to sell and give that much to the poor. And if he's cheated anybody out of anything, past, present, or future, and undoubtedly he has because that's how tax collectors make their money, that he's going to repay those people 4 times the amount he cheated them out of. That is startling. You remember that young man who could not part with his wealth, and he walked away sorrowful. Zacchaeus is joyful. He is happy to do this. And that's going to turn this wealthy tax collector into somebody who's no longer wealthy, giving away that much of his wealth. And we kind of wonder in the back of our minds, does he really mean it? Maybe after Jesus is gone, he'll return to his cheating ways. And we don't know what happens. The Bible doesn't say what happens later. But this we do know, Jesus knows the heart of Zacchaeus. He knows. And so when Zacchaeus makes this unbelievable commitment of wealth and recompense, Jesus smiles. And he gives Zacchaeus something a whole lot more valuable than money. He says, today, salvation has come to the house of Zacchaeus because he is a son of Abraham. Zacchaeus really could give away all his money and still be rich because he has the most valuable thing that anyone can have, something money cannot buy, an eternal home in the presence of God. Salvation. And notice he didn't receive salvation because he's going to make good on his promise. He didn't receive salvation because he deserved to be treated that way by Jesus because he has been hospitable towards the Son of God. No, he hasn't done anything to receive salvation. Jesus could have just said, well, we'll see, Zacchaeus. We'll see if you make good on your promise because your track record shows you to be a thief and liar. We'll see if you've changed. Jesus does not say that. Instead, Jesus gives him salvation. because of who Jesus is, that he is the Son of God and he's full of love, full of goodness, full of grace. He gives salvation as a gift to this man with a penitent heart. And then finally, let's consider the matter of stature. At the beginning of the story, Zacchaeus is short in height, and he's also lower than a snake's belly in the eyes of the people. He is the least. But then Jesus lays eyes on him. He is seen by the Son of God, and everything changes. He repents. Jesus blesses him with salvation. Jesus elevates him to a position of sonship in the kingdom, because that's what Jesus came to do. He came to seek and to save the least. How many times have we heard Jesus say it on the pages of Scripture? The Pharisees don't see Jesus as anybody special. All they want to do is find out why he eats and drinks with sinners and tax collectors. And he replies, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick." He says, "Whoever receives a child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives the one who sent me. For he who is least among you is the one who will be the greatest." It is Jesus who says, "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it also to me." It is Jesus who says, if anyone would be first, he must be last of all and the servant of all. Jesus says, many who are first will be last, and the last will be first. It is Jesus who said, "But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Three things to think about in the coming week. First of all, Jesus is looking for you, just like he was looking for Zacchaeus. And so may we present ourselves in such a way that we can be found, so that we can be seen by the Son of God. The second thing we need to see is that Jesus wants to bless us richly, not with money, not with property, not with social status. He wants to bless us with salvation. And so we must have penitent and receptive hearts like Zacchaeus. Hearts that have eyes for the least among us, because Jesus came to save those people. May we receive his salvation. And finally, we need to understand that Jesus is not coming for the prideful. The Pharisees are prideful people, and that gets in the way of them being able to see Jesus. It's the same way for us. Pride is a deterrent that keeps us from seeing Jesus. How many people have you known who say, "I don't need Jesus. I have money. I have social status." And to those people, Jesus says, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tonight your soul is going to be required of you. Your stuff is going to be taken from you and given to someone else who didn't even have to work for it. And then what are you going to have? Not salvation. For truly I say to you, he who is least among you is the one who is great." And so I pray that you and I will not think more of ourselves than we ought, but that we would always consider others better than we are. May we have humble hearts. May we see ourselves as unworthy servants who, by the grace of our Lord, have been declared sons of Abraham. Have a blessed week.